I'm here at the International Conference on Men's Issues with Kenneth Jolivet. So how's it going?
Yeah, very good. I'm excited to be invited here at the International Conference for Men's Issues 2019 and probably speaking next year at the 2020 conference.
Nice one. And you've brought your book along with you.
Yes, this book's just come out, Society Kills Men. Feminism Loses When Half Are Held Back. It's been out 2 weeks now and it's doing quite well. Had a previous radio interview with Wisconsin in America here. Got one in Sydney, Australia with Sydney MGTOW, hopefully in the next week or two. So yeah, things are moving on nicely with the book.
Excellent. And so what's the book about?
As the title kind of says directly, Society Kills Men. It's that concept of Chinese lin chai, which is death by 1,000 cuts. So essentially we're saying that society here, all the facets of it, is attacking men in a slow way. Death by 1,000 cuts is the best way to say it. So things like when a boy goes to school, it's very feminist, nothing but female teachers on through the system, and then he goes to university. It's the same concept, and it's a very feminized school at university, as you probably know, with the rape culture, women's studies as subjects, women's centers, activism. It's been infiltrated by mostly feminist people, left-leaning and feminist, whether it be man or woman, feminist. And then other parts of society, as you go on to work, you go into the dating scene, you go to the media, you're inundated with the media bombarding, shaming men, blaming men, especially now with white privilege. It's a very big thing. The colonialism in the UK, the imperial thing. So yeah, there's a lot of facets about society killing men. The workplace, the Me Too movement, gynocentrism, which isn't all that well known back from medieval times in the 1200s. It's part of our culture. Every time you open your door, open the car door for a lady, this is gynocentrism. You've been trained to be a gentleman, especially in England. You know, this Queen of Aquitaine was the start of it from 1200s.
Right, yeah. And so you think the overall outlook for men as a result of this kind of death by 1,000 cuts, it's a pretty bad outlook, yeah?
Well, it is a bad outlook, but that's why I'm writing the book, and other people here at the conference are speaking out, because I think there's a good lady author, I think it's Dr. Helen Smith, says that men aren't getting angry, but we are definitely getting irritated. And
what was her book called? I remember reading it, and
I think it's called Men on Strike.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, very good book. I just finished it, and so what she's talking about there, men are getting irritated. So all these things that are happening to us, we've had enough. And Warren Farrell with fatherlessness, you can see that, and in America, it's a very big problem. You can name whatever the problem is, it leads back to fatherlessness. And with single moms ever increasing, same problem in the UK. 40% of kids being born out of wedlock. People of color, it goes up to 70%. But whether it be jail, gangs, crime, teen pregnancy, knife crimes, you name it, it can all go back to fatherlessness. Going to jail. Most of the people in jail, 93% of them are men, but the majority of those men come from fatherless families. So
I think so. I mean, for me, that's one of the major parts of the problem, is the fact that there is this kind of promotion of a feminized society where fathers aren't involved in their children's lives, and the upshot of that is that everyone does worse, you know, and it's just worse for everyone, and the whole society becomes a lot more dysfunctional.
Exactly. Yeah, you touched on two things. Exactly. No one's winning in this gender war. And people, politicians in the UK, Harriet Harman, she's one of the most radical feminists that you've got in the high level of your government. Theresa May was also quite known to be a feminist. She was quite proud to be a tough woman, as she said. But Harriet Harman, back in 1989, the Children's Act, literally said it is no longer the rule of law that the father is the legitimate guardian of his child. It is abolished. So that kind of tells you and it goes back to the early days of feminism in Greenwich Village in New York. They really set out a mission, part of Marxism, leftism, was to destroy the family. And the way you destroy the family is in the patriarchy, which is the attack on the patriarchy, is you get rid of the family unit and you get rid of the father. How do you get rid of the father? You denigrate men, you shame men, you blame men, you show them that they're worthless, you write new laws, misogyny laws, all these new laws that society is creating is at the expense of men and it's for women. And when you get rid of the father out of national acts, there's another law from 2014. Literally, the word father in a family act isn't in there once. What does that tell you? So now we can replace fathers with almost anybody. And it's the same in America. The APA and American Psychology Today also put in there that you don't need a father. Anybody could be a father, basically. So it's not looking good for men. And part of the book, Society Kills Men, is that it's a slow death, but it's spiritual and physical. So I start the book with suicide. Why are men committing suicide from 4 times to 16.5 times more than women? Divorced men, as an example, are committing suicide 10 times more than a divorced woman. Why would that be? Why is it that in India, 9 times the amount of men are committing suicide than women? Because there's new changes to the law in India where the men are biased, the laws are written against the men, and it's the men killing suicide. In China, the only exception is women. Women are worth less than men in China, so hence women is the only exception. They commit suicide more than men. So it's about
in China.
In China.
And that's probably the only country in the world, is it, where the numbers are reversed?
Only one. And that tells you, and it's a worth correlation. And what we have here in America, the UK, and the West, men are worth a lot less. We're disposable. And I talk about disposability in men. You see it everywhere.
Yeah, I think part of that is there is this kind of natural, promotion of basically men being the disposable gender. But then kind of, I guess that was part of, how the two genders interacted in the past, with men basically being the leaders and, being the guardians of the tribe and so on. And obviously they still have to fulfill that function of being the ones who step up in an emergency, or if the group is threatened, then men are always the ones who have to step up and do what they do. But they're kind of not rewarded for that anymore, and there's no. It's kind of, just the whole feminist movement pretends that, women can do all of that easily, no problem, and
it went back to the tribes, as you say, and it continued on throughout society. And like you said, in the old days, the women, there's a tribe, the women would have to, once a year, they had a ceremony for 2 days, the women would literally cut themselves and beat themselves. Real pain as well, blood. And they did that as an appreciation to show the men who were out hunting and dying at the risk. So they recognized, and it was their 2 days to give back to the men. Now, where do we have that? Anywhere remotely? Men doing all the dangerous jobs and dying at, some 99.9% levels of death. The top 20 U.S. or most dangerous jobs, all filled by men. We go to war. There's gendercide. Men, we hear about women being raped, war crime. Terrible thing, no doubt. But you don't hear about men being gendercided. The boys of, fighting age are being killed so they can't then fight later. These things are going on all the time. Boko Haram, all you hear about is the 200 or 300 girls
you don't
being
hear
taken.
about the massive numbers of boys who are murdered and
slaughtered, gendercide.
Yeah.
So, men are disposable. We go to war, we go to jail, divorce, we get our kids taken. Doesn't matter. We're disposable. In marriage, 80% of the divorces are filed by women. That's a mentality because the divorce law, we're disposable. I never forget in my first marriage, my wife said, "You're replaceable," essentially. It's an idea that anyone can be a father. The government now is so big, they're taking care of women. Women know that men are replaceable. There's that saying about...
Do you think they feel that way because they're kind of conditioned by the society to treat men as being disposable and replaceable, and then probably from that you just get the maybe a long-term realization by some women at least that they have treated men this way, and it's all been a mistake.
I think it's a natural thing. Everyone knew that men were stronger, we were providers. So they went from taking something for granted, you could acknowledge. But now society, anytime you enable things, and so society has now enabled the women to have it all their way. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with parenting, as another example. All these things I talk about in the book, and they just kind of come up in my head as we talk.
Yeah.
But parenting. There's some paper in the UK also. It's about guarding. Women are guarding and how you are allowed to parent even now. Yeah. So a woman doesn't have to allow a man to even parent anymore, because if she doesn't like it, she just divorces you. And it's a constant threat for a lot of men that if you don't toe the line and do it my way, it's like gatekeeping, I think they're calling it, on the parenting thing. So that's just another example that they don't have to tolerate it. The state enables them to get their way. Why wouldn't you get their way? In some ways you can't blame women, right? It's a natural reaction that if you can get something, why not take it?
Yeah. I think that is a really bad situation and kind of mentality to have. I think it is the feminist society that has it's kind of told women that I don't know, they're equal to men, they can do everything that men can do with high heels on, and that's basically men don't have their own value or their own role, and it does just seem as though everything's just become really topsy-turvy as a result of this, I guess, just this endless, kind of promotion of women as angels and then men as demons. And I see all of this within, feminist society. And I just generally, I think there's just a need to actually focus on the differences that exist between the two genders, and to look at the good side, the bad side, the positives and the weaknesses that both genders have. And I think by doing that, then we just people will see their own weaknesses, their own strengths, and I think a lot more relationships would just be a lot more healthy if there was more of a realistic focus on the two genders and the strengths that they both have.
I think that's a key point, and that's what we try to talk about, that we're only asking for this short dialogue, and that life, as Jordan Peterson says, life is suffering. It's already tough. So the only way you're going to survive is if you work together. Why not work together? What you don't need to do is it's that age-old thing, divide and conquer. Why wouldn't you divide and conquer? So that life is tough. It takes two hands to clap, is a Persian expression. You cannot do it alone. So, you really need to work together, and that was the whole thing. Recognize each other's strengths and weaknesses, and you work together. You do that in any team, don't you?
Yeah.
At work, that's the idea. Is who can do what? And that's how you build a hierarchy as well, and that's how you build a team. Men are good at building teams. We understand. You learn to work and tolerate with the weakest person, but you use whatever. Everyone has a skill. So you do that. And the other thing you brought up is the thing about the military. It just made me think of, they want everything, but at the end of the day, the equality, and I served in the military for 21 years, so I know what I'm talking about. And I never liked it that the equality had to allow lower standards to let people, the women, in. And yet there's no question that it lowered efficiency, performance, morale, and nothing in the back of my mind would allow me to not think that they're putting my life at risk and the team's life at risk. So
I mean, for me, that was one of the big issues that I talk about, is the feminization of the workplace. And I had a similar experience in mental health services of, I'd say, too many women being allowed to work in ward environments where we're dealing with kind of men of fighting age who are suffering from mental health illness. And it was kind of, in those situations, it was always the men who had to step up and
Yeah.
who had to get involved in the restraints. But you know, the advice from above was that, oh well, you know, the women have done the training and therefore they'll be as useful in these restraint situations. And it was like, no, it's not really like that. You know,
Right. Yeah.
in a, you know, an actual world situation where it's kind of, you know, you've got someone who's kicking off. It's not like that at all. And there you have to have a promotion of actual physical capability and competency.
Yes.
But it seems just in so many industries we don't really have that absolutely necessary mentality anymore. So
Yeah, I read in the British papers, and there was in something anyway where talking about bobbies on the beat and cops together. You will never see the women responding to these dangerous, the lady cops responding to the dangerous things. They'll always be in pairs, man and woman, or the women doing certain jobs, and it'll be the men tackling the other jobs, because those are the dangerous ones, and you won't really see the women there responding. So I don't know whether that's true or not, but from what I see, I can probably see it that way, and that's just another example.
I think, you know, I mean, what you were saying about the military, that it seems as though that mentality has just crept in everywhere,
Exactly.
and I think it's disastrous. But
From what you just said about the ward, same concept, and to take it even a notch lower, it was just at the market, local market, and I was having a coffee and I saw the guys. It was probably, let's say, 4 men and 4 women working, and they all sold the fruit and vegetables, but at the end of the day, when they had to take it down and all the heavier equipment and folding the gazebos and packing up, I asked the guy when he came in for coffee, I said, oh, where are all the ladies? He said, well, they don't do this. They leave, and it's for us men to do. Oh, okay, well, what's up with that? Oh, yeah, it's just the way it is. I don't like it, but that's just the way it is. They go. So that's just a very small, and you wonder, they're supposed to be equal and working together, and that's just the smallest example of such a thing.
All right, well, it was great talking to you, and so your book is available online, is it?
It's on Amazon.com, and it's published from a Canadian publishing, Raymond Aaron, but I have a website, societykillsmen.com. You can find that and my other 5 books there.
Excellent.
And you subscribe and you know, make contact email and what have you.
Sure. So I'll put up links for your book and your site on my video. And thank you for talking to me.
Thank you.